Welcome, everybody. Even though it's not on the agenda, we can still do the pledge since the flag is visible. So please rise. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam City Clerk, can you conduct the roll call, please?
Councilmember Chow. Here. Councilmember Sinks. Here. Councilmember Willie. Here. Vice Mayor Paul.
Here.
Mayor Scharf.
Here. Okay, so we are on to oral communications. I have 4 cards. Jennifer Griffin, followed by Lisa Warren, followed by Mahesh Bakala, followed by Rena. Well, I can't.
What night?
Mahesh's wife. Okay. Welcome, Jennifer.
Boy, we do.
And we don't have the big timer, so I'm going to time here.
Do you have your gravel? Anyway, we do get to meet all the neighbors in here, which is good. Hi, I'm Jennifer Griffin. This is always an interesting setup here. I just wanted to start out about the ADUs. We got the potential for how the legislation is going to go down in Cupertino like a little while ago. And to me, it's kind of like we just kicked the can over the back fence. The housing bills were annoying, but the ADU is downright in your face. And I was really, really happy to hear that the literature on Google or Yahoo says that the writers of the ADU bills have been successful in triplexing California or Cupertino. Wow, that's really conducive to neighborly feelings, that we have triplexed the state. Whose big joke thing is this? Who are they trying to pull the wool over the eyes of? I mean, I didn't elect these politicians. They're not my politicians. Somebody evidently kicked them up the food chain, and now they're abusing the residents of the state. But mine is, we're motelizing Cupertino. You can have, I guess, essentially a triplex on any individual lot in Cupertino. Because you can have an ADU and you can also have a junior ADU. So what I'm going to say is, do these people, somebody who is going to put the 2 ADUs on their property, legitimate as of January 1st, do they have to pay more for bond measures and parcel taxes because they can put 2 ADUs on their lot? You can have 3 children in a 2-bedroom, 1,200 square foot ADU, and 1 child in a junior ADU if you had a single parent. There's no problem with that. They don't have a bathroom, but you have a kitchen. So do these people that decide to incentivize their lots, and yes, that word is incentivize is just so warm and fuzzy, do they have to pay more money for parcel taxes and bond measures than a single-family homeowner? Because they're producing 4 more children that will be going to our local schools. Also, never mind the 6 extra cars. I'm not sure how much I have, 6 extra cars on the street, but I don't think it's fair. And you know, there's nothing in the ballot measure stuff this March to talk about the ADUs. And you know what? I'm probably going to vote no on every single parcel tax and bond measure because they had enough time to put that stuff in the literature. The governor okayed these ADU bills in October, and somebody could have done the research and gotten it into the ballot measures. But I'm sorry, I and several other relatives in Santa Cruz are voting no on all the bond and parcel tax measures because we'd like to be told exactly how the ADUs are going to affect us. I don't want to pay more for someone else. Thank you.
Okay, we have Lisa Warren, followed by Mahesh, followed by Rena, followed by Brandon Pan. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. So I'm here, I was glad that you were having this meeting where I could speak about a non-agenda item because I want to touch base on what happened last week with the ADU ordinance. And the request from, and the agreement of some people's part that ADUs, when there's applications and they are running through planning and then building, that they should be noticed to adjacent neighbors. Not widespread, but people who will live next door, behind, or in front of these things. So I was really disappointed in how that turned out. I feel like there was at least 3.5 of you that thought that there should be some kind of noticing, and it didn't happen. So I'm here to request that you revisit that before the second reading next week, or potentially next week. And, maybe I spoke to Councilman Sinks about the mistake I thought he made. I'm not sure he heard what I said. I spoke to the attorney who is doing the ADU things, and she heard me. I don't see how this can be a legal problem, and if it is really felt to be that case, then in my opinion at this point, it's best to notice, just like on two-story construction, just do anything, single-story construction, ADUs, anything that will affect the immediate neighbors. Because what that does is it opens up an opportunity, if done at the right time, before too much money is spent, before too much staff time is spent, for neighbors to talk neighbor to neighbor and come up with compromises. And in a case I dealt with in another city with the family property, it actually was beneficial to do that, because neighbors were able to present options that the applicant and landowner was happier with. I just think they need to be part of the discussion. And the fact that some of you may think that it may come back to appeals and time lost, you get appeals to projects in this city when people don't know soon enough what's happening next door to them. And they don't have time to talk in a cordial manner with their neighbors and figure something out, possibly, and possibly not, but at least they get the chance. Those are the people that appeal. When the first time they know anything about it is when there's a sign in front of the house and you have 7 days to do something about it. And by then, it's normally too late. So my request is to revisit that, and if it needs to be any residential project, fine. If the problem or the presumed problem is because it looks like it's targeting ADUs, because really we need neighbor-to-neighbor communications in the city more now than ever. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. And staff will actually be looking into that. Mahesh, followed by Rena, followed by Brandon. Welcome, Mahesh.
Thank you, sir. Just a minute.
They can see.
Good afternoon, Mayor Stephen Sharp, Vice Mayor Darcy Paul, and City Council members Rod Sings, Liang Chow, and John. So, again, my name is Mahesh Pikal. I'm the sister city. Today I decided to come again because on last Tuesday when I talked about the Healing Garden, I realized that there were a lot of new elected city council members and a lot of staff who have not heard about the progress. And after talking to Liang Chow, I realized, city council member Liang Chow realized that I need to give a little of a background and update the council members about what we have been doing over the past few years. So basically, to talk about it, this is a Healing Garden which is situated in a city called Bhubaneswar in Orissa, and it has got around 200 significant medicinal plants and what we call, it could be herbal, or it's like, a lot of these plants are used for treatment for ailments, any kind of ailments. It even can cancer or many other things among them. And it's just situated in the heart of the city, Bhubaneswar, our sister city. And in the city, in this park, it is basically decorated with a lot of stone statues and architectural wonders, actually, from which are based on a lot of heritage, which are really 1,000 to 2,000 years old. And it is a pretty beautiful scenic city, and which is, again, would be a very useful and that is very popular among a lot of visitors who visit Bhubaneswar, to go and spend some peaceful time in meditation, or have a calm walk in that medicinal park. And just wanted to show the healing garden. We have with us in 2017, the mayor, our then mayor, Savita Vidyanathan, visited in 2017. Then we had our then mayor in 2018, Mr. Darcy Paul, visit, along with the ex-mayor, Gilbert Wong, who visited Canberra Park. And there he's listening very intently to the botanist. He's the man who runs, he's a botanist who runs the park out there, talking about the various plants and trees, about what the medicinal values are. And here is our, again, the mayor who was giving the gift to the mayor of Bhubaneswar from the city of Cupertino. Here he's visiting Reena's mom in Bhubaneswar house, where he had a breakfast with Reena's mom there. And then this is the city council member. And the vice mayor is a lady out there who's also very dynamic. And we had a very nice meeting out there. That was in 2018. And then after that, when the city council, the mayor, Savita, returned back, she made a public announcement on the stage about the sister city and how she was really inspired by what she saw, and it was covered in the San Jose Mercury News, and many other newspapers were covered. And then after that, then we as a team, based on the city council members' advice, we visited and talked to a lot of the recreation and community services team members in January 2018.
Okay, please finish up.
Sorry?
Please finish up unless...
Yeah, I'm taking her time.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
great.
sorry.
Okay, could you stand up there with it? Thank you. All right, continue.
So, and we had put together a phased plan out and was shared with them. And I want to go quickly, just as a recap, yeah. So we had a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, how we would be doing it. And yeah, one more thing I wanted to let you know, the plants need not have to be, maybe we can get a few, but most of the plants are available in the North America, and it could mostly in Hawaii. And we can figure out what plants can be sourced in Northern America. So that also is a plant, and we can get the help of the botanist if required. And this is some photographs from the Canberra one. Quickly, I can share. And there's a stage where we can perform meditation or dances. And this is the visitor when Savita visited in 2017 with all the school kids out there. So yeah, so here there is a place where all the school kids go and learn about medicinal herbal plants. What are these plants used for? Those kind of things. And this is a similar park is available. Has been built in Fresno. If you all want, we can visit. That is built by the Cancer Foundation for treatment of cancer, for where people can go and spend peaceful time, meditate and walk. And if you look at the pathway, it is all decorated with a lot of art paintings. And we want to do not a similar thing. It could be like made out of statues or paintings. It can be really made a beautiful plan for the citizens living here, and they can have a peaceful time in the meditation, in the healing garden. Anything else you want to add?
Suggested tentative places.
Yeah, so we are open. The only things that the discussions had come out was
Valiant Park,
yeah.
Blackberry Farm.
Yeah, those are the
Valiant
two.
Park or Blackberry Farm, we were thinking. But,
Yeah.
but it's up to the city.
Yeah, whatever the city decides, we are good with it. But that's the background we just wanted to share with you. Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you for your time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Brandon Pan, followed by somebody with no name. Welcome, Brandon.
Hi, council members. I'm Brandon, a Cupertino High School student, speaking on behalf of the Cupertino Youth Climate Action Team again, and I'll just be echoing some of the points that we made at the past few meetings. And so I would like to thank you all for the addition of a single-use plastics ordinance, as well as some water usage policy to the proposed work plan. And I would like to request that Green Mondays and the implementation of carbon-negative building materials are added to the work plan as well. So for Green Mondays, agriculture is a huge part of greenhouse gas emissions, and the implementation of plant-based meals on Mondays in city facilities and for city faculty can show that like Cupertino is leading the battle against climate change through a more holistic manner. Because like most policy on climate change is directed towards like transportation or like the use of like more renewable energy, but like this ignores like the huge role that agriculture plays in emissions. And so like implementing a Green Monday policy in Cupertino would just show that Cupertino not only like would show that Cupertino is leading the efforts against climate change, but also show that Cupertino is Cupertino. It would also like has a lot of like health benefits for our citizens as well. And so then the second thing I want to talk about was the carbon negative building materials. And so whether that's some form of CO2 sequestering or just materials that result in less pollution during the production process, all actions that result in a greener Cupertino should be taken. And so adding all these policies would again put Cupertino as a leader in the fight against climate change, which is why I would like to see them added to the work plan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then the last card, it says climate change, corporate sustainability, but there's no name. So whoever that is, welcome.
Yes, hello, thank you for your time. So I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself. My name is Mansi Navagundkar, and I am a student at Monte Vista High School. And admittedly, I am here for a government project, but I actually am not taking classes at Monte Vista. I'm lucky enough to be part of the middle college program and take my classes at Dienza. So I wanted to know what steps we are taking to hold companies accountable in terms of climate change and sustainability, which is something that I did not see outlined on the agenda. A lot of the agenda measures, as I believe Justin had mentioned, they are about, say, transportation and housing, which are more pressing issues relative to the city, because the housing crisis is really imminent and is affecting so many of our citizens today. But I do want to bring our attention to what we are doing in the corporate space in order to make climate change a pressing issue that companies are held accountable for. Although this is a general question, I would like to hear one of the council members' answers to it. Thank you.
So during oral, we're not allowed to
I'm
discuss
sorry.
things. It's not on the
Okay.
agenda. So during the agenda, if you'd like to speak again, then we would be able to respond.
Okay, yeah, thank you so
Okay.
much. I didn't know that. This is my first meeting here. So yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, that ends oral communications unless there's anyone else that would like to speak that did not submit a card. Seeing no one, we will move on to the study session. So this is to review the proposed fiscal year 2020 to 21 city work program and provide input. So can we have our presentation?
No. Is it on? Okay, gotcha. Okay, so this is session 2. Hold on. It was session 2. Can we use hands? Oh, there it goes. We unplugged this. All we did was unplug this. Or is it that? I don't know. It was this. Sorry.
I still can't escape
It
from
still
the-
doesn't.
It doesn't allow you to escape from the software.
Yeah, you
There's
have to
something
use
wrong
that
with
one.
the laptop. Okay, just
sorry.
give it a second to
Okay.
load the software. That's it's like locked up completely. When we get to the desktop.
Apologies for the delay.
Desktop. Where's the click share? Sorry. Yeah, for it.
Yeah, there it goes. Do you want me to go over here?
You can see where either was. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want-
Over here?
This one's
That one's DOA.
don't know what happened.
Okay, thank you for your patience. So this is our strategic planning session number 2. We had our first session, as a reminder, on February 10th on Monday, where we went through the 1920 work program items as well as proposed goals that the council then adopted in the subsequent city council meeting on February 18th. This evening, the council will be reviewing a proposed 2021 city work program based upon the city council's goals. And I will only draw your attention to this flow diagram to say that we're going to have to delay because of other events, the CIP portion, which are the dark blue boxes to the right. So all of that flow will shift around just a little bit, just to manage expectations. Obviously, City Council and everybody else knows what a city work program is. I would just highlight here that what we're trying to do is take a pretty lengthy work program process and kind of make it more simplified going forward, as well as making sure that we incorporate new projects and initiatives kind of throughout the work program and kind of avoid what I first experienced here, which was a lot of like suggested projects that weren't in the work program. So the combination of a very heavy work program plus extra wasn't getting anything done. So we just decided we would start keeping a list of proposed items. As a reminder, As a reminder for everyone, all I'm trying to get to is we have about 70 to 75% is conceptual of our work that actually is operational. Actually all of the services provided to the community is considered in operations. We have a little bit, about 25% in the work program, and about 5 to 10% in the light blue, which is our strategic planning and organizational review kind of time together. Right now, I'm trying to get that dotted line moved over to 10%. We spend about not very much time together, and I think I need a little more time. Several of the council expressed perhaps a quick review of the work that goes on in each portion of the city. I won't beat this too much. City clerk's office, for example, is to build trust and confidence with the community, promoting transparency, certainly responsible for the public records requests. Public safety is kind of obvious. Economic development is obviously focused on our businesses within the city. And of course, policy and legislation as experienced through the legislative platform development with the subcommittee. Administrative services is pretty straightforward, so I won't spend a lot of time there. This is mostly internally focused for recruitments that we have to do, as well as budget reviews and audits and things like that. Parks and Recreation is pretty self-explanatory. I will draw your attention to maybe a couple of boxes here. Certainly, community events and facilities are all pushed out of this one area that also operates Quinlan on behalf of the city, as well as the Outdoor Recreation Division, which pretty much has all of our outdoor facilities, which is wonderful. Blackberry Farm, Stevens Creek Corridor, Memorial Park, etc. Public Works actually is a pretty large department that has a lot of the operational components that you see on that pie chart, ranging from environmental programs all the way through maintenance. So, trees, roads and grounds maintenance, general cleanup, and CIP, which we will hear about later in our process. Community development, I think everybody knows what happens here. There's a little piece of code enforcement in here, housing services, and our planning department. Then our IT development, innovation technology department, which focuses on our GIS, and I just look at them as our software solution space, and so they help integrate systems, they build anything that we can't get commercially available, or that are not kind of given to the city by by providers where we're standardizing software across cities. And actually wanted to add that, like our GIS, they're the ones that built, for example, some of the maps, like for bike peds and cell towers and small cell location. There was also a request to review or take a look at commissions and committees by city department to try and help level load some of the work that may come out of the work program. So this is an attempt to do that. So you'll see that community development has a good number of committees and commissions. And of course, at the top level, we have the city council that reports at the top level, but is kind of partnered with the city manager's office. So I've made a few changes given the last review of our pretty heavy work program. You have your printouts. I think there's copies available for the public as well. The operational items that were discussed before have been moved out of the work program and generally moved into operations where we handle it ourselves. Certainly I will provide updates at council's request on any of the items of interest, and we can certainly do like a formal call and see what topics you might want to hear about in the future. But we can do that later. All other services for the public are out of the operations arm of the city. And then I just wanted to call one significant change to help make hopefully make the work program process a little bit easier. The hours that were listed previously on here were not to try and with any precision give you an estimate of the number of hours that were needed for that particular project, but were actually a way to try and tell you if it was a small, medium, or large project, so that if in case you have work program items you'd like to propose yourself, we can try and right size those and trade items out on the proposed work program so that we have kind of a continuity of projects. So this is my attempt at trying to define those. Small is 0 to 100 hours. Medium is from 101 to 600 hours. Larger is from 600 about 2,000 hours. Anything over 2,000 hours is extra large. I want to make a couple of statements here.
So
Yes.
Deb, we can fit everything that's here
Yes.
in there, but if we want something else, we're going to have to take something else out.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So the only levers that I can find to control or help manage and accomplish the work program on behalf of council is either we keep the work program at a level where this current staff can handle it, or we add way more staff, or we somehow reduce, I don't know, we're going to reduce operations because that impacts services to the community. So yes, this particular proposed work program is designed to fit pretty much into the size of staff we currently have.
Okay, so if we take something off, we
We'll
could
trade
put
it.
something else on.
Yeah, and that was
Okay.
the whole idea. So if you propose something, one of our staff will tell you if we think it's small, medium, large, or extra large, and we'll start looking at another handout later after I go through the summary.
Okay. All right.
And then proposed
So
work.
a question, so right now, this is separated into categories that match the
Goals.
council goals.
Correct.
However, I don't see how they match to different departments.
You will.
So that we can better see
You will.
which department has what.
You will.
What's the load for each department.
You will.
Okay.
I promise. You have another handout we'll give you in a moment. So the proposed work program that you're going to see is just that, a proposed work program. It's a compilation of input from the commissions, city staff, and council. I've tried to listen very closely to council requests over the last 7 or 8, 9 months and added them on as appropriate. If you see something that's missing or something you'd like to see, we can hold that to the end.
I would like to say, I don't think we were asked specifically what items we would like to consider for next year. So there are items that I didn't bring up in our one-on-one meetings. In one-on-one meetings, usually I bring up items that I think we should consider this year. So I don't think we were given a chance to comment, provide what we would like to work on in the future.
That's fair enough. In the past, it's been a combination of one-on-ones, it's been a combination of discussions, we've gotten perhaps some items through council meetings, so we've tried to compile them as best we can. If you have new work program items you would like to suggest that you don't see on the list as we go through it, you certainly can propose them.
I mention this because this is my second year. So last year, my first year, I remembered we were asked us specifically to provide a list of items. And then the work program was a combination of the list of items from the council members. But what's lacking last year was we didn't get the list from the commissions. So this year it's great that we have lists from the commissions and the staff, but somehow the list from the council members are not complete because we were not asked specifically to think about it.
That's true.
And submit.
That's true. Huh? Yeah, but if you add them now, then it's out in the public and you can discuss them further. Yeah, and I said that. So throughout the year, all of you have said a few things about what you'd like to see on the work program, and we've captured them. We've made an attempt to capture them on the proposed work program. But again, if you don't see them by the end of the summary, that will be your time to add those.
Question?
Yes?
So one of them of interest that I'm not quite sure what category, and so I'm not seeing the discrete item, but like the cell towers. So I'm not seeing it. So is that something that is going to be covered, or?
So you currently have a study session that you put on the agenda items that we would be discussing, the mayor and I, for this work program year.
Okay.
This is 2021, which means all this work would start in July of 2020.
Okay. And so then the other question, I know what section it would go in, transportation, and that is addressing the congestion and trying to resolve a lot of the traffic congestion that we've got. Again, I'm not seeing it as a line in here. Is that something?
So if you don't see specifically in the summary that I'm about to give you, then certainly you might want to add those. We can discuss further the items that do show up under that goal.
Yeah, so the question's really kind of a little bit more in general. What's the ground rules, in terms of the things that we've talked about, if we don't see them specifically in here?
So the first thing, which is the small cell tower discussion, is a 1920 action that you've given the 1920, not
good.
work program, but you have a study session that's coming up. If you want a work program item specific to that, you may get that anyways before July, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Sorry, did you have anything?
No, just about the study session for this small cells. We're still waiting for the Ninth Circuit to weigh in. So until that happens, we don't. We probably want to have that after they weigh in, I would think.
No, the study session was trying to look at what other components in the Palo Alto ordinance or other cities that currently could maybe give us better standard. So it's unrelated to the FPCC only.
Well, it is because we want to do things that are legal.
Yeah, but it's not. Palo Alto has a lot of components in their ordinance. Not
And
yeah.
I'd just like to bring it back
Right.
to the work program.
Yes.
And we
Right,
do
let's
have
go
a
back to
study
the work
session
program.
coming
Sorry.
up, and we'll
Okay.
be designing that as it comes forward.
Okay, so underneath the first goal for the city council, public engagement and transparency, we have a call out specifically, actually number 2 and number 2, the commission handbook update, which was pushed by the subcommittee that came up with the communications with commissions document, and as a result, kind of another one is, although I don't see it on here anymore. Anyway, so, and then, of course, the new seal, city seal or logo, coupled with number 8, which is a leadership program that used to be called Leadership 95014. We felt like rebranding might be best before we do that, but that the rest, the 2020 would be used to compile and conceive of what the leadership program would look like. Let's see.
Can we make requests as we're going along here? Or should we save our questions for
I'm
the
hoping
end?
you'll save them for later, but.
Okay, okay, that's fine.
Okay. Transportation, we have, it's split out into the two, an overall bullet and then the sub-bullet that was proposed by council during the adoption period. Of course, the shuttle bus pilot program implementation is something we want to watch, so it's sitting in the work program, including regional transformative transit project initiatives, which would probably be working with other agencies. And then, of course, Councilmember Willie, your item on improving traffic flow and alleviating congestion. Bollinger Road safety study needs to happen. A pilot adaptive traffic signaling for being able to regulate the traffic a little bit better to address your congestion concern. And then, of course, a way to do a traffic count. Any questions about that?
So when we get to it is when we're going to talk.
Yes, so keep note. For housing, now housing is a little bit lengthy. It is a bigger focus area. So it will be organized later between kind of housing and then things related to homelessness, which was the subsequent kind of piece to that goal. But just to call your attention to certain things, for example, housing program for De Anza College students was put on there by the Housing Commission with staff support, and that's mostly to deal with homeless students and students that are housing insecure. We have the $1.4 billion pledged by the governor for homelessness to help address homelessness across the state, and then being able to provide transportation to and from services for homeless or home insecure people or housing insecure people. Next session on housing, you have a study session to talk about the next RENA cycle as soon as we understand what the methodology is. And then, of course, engaging with philanthropic organizations to build ELI housing units. An example of that is on Byrne Avenue. Then sustainability. I think you'll see that we have the alternatives, investigate alternatives for City Hall refurbishment or recapitalization. That kind of goes with the municipal water system. We have single-use plastics ordinance on the docket, along with climate action and adaptation plans and updates. Under quality of life, which is also one of the larger goals where we capture a lot of the work program items, under air quality and noise, secondhand smoke, a pilot for noise measurement through sensors is my understanding. Study session on potential ordinance for banning gas-powered leaf blowers, and then a pilot on pollution monitoring. Under recreation was another sub-bullet under quality of life, the Blackberry Farm Golf Course, additional DOLA areas around the city, teen workshops, the Rancho Rinconada pool area, and the Parks and Recreation Strategic Plan, which is different than the master plan. And then I think it's lastly, access to goods and services was another bulleted area underneath this goal for council, targeting marketing programs to assist small businesses and considering changing our mobile service vendor ordinance. Others are to evaluate the conditional uses, sign an ordinance update, evaluate the residential one ordinance, zone ordinance, art festivals, and art in unexpected places. Also design standards for residential and mixed use. So I'll hold it there. Maybe I'll go back to this one. Are there questions about kind of the general summary from all the other input thus far?
So, what is the method for the council to vote on each one of these items, whether we think it's should be in the work plan or not?
So did you want to vote on each item?
Well, I don't know exactly how to do this. I mean, I see some items that, I think some of us might think are not worth spending time or money on,
Okay.
and some that are very worthwhile.
Okay, so do you
So
want
I
to?
don't know how we
We can go back to
we
what,
do this.
where do you want to start? We can go by goal.
I mean, this could take hours if we do it this way. I mean, we could provide in writing, to you. Each of us could supply that, as if that's legal. I don't know.
I think we need to have the communication in this meeting.
Okay.
So
But we could, I think one way to do it would be to see if council members have comments on any particular items, and then see if there's a consensus about that one, and have votes if there's not.
Could I ask if it's possible that we take public input, we give you a first sense of this, but then we also provide more detailed written input for those things? Is that possible? And then that could be brought back for a subsequent?
I would recommend it just happen here in the meeting, and I know it takes some time, but that's being public and transparent about it.
Okay, so the last attachment are programs that were in this year's program but dropped in next year's program. Do you have a presentation on that? I think it's important to go through that and see if we all agree they should be dropped. For example, there is development accountability that's dropped, and heart of the city plan that's dropped, and
So we
So-
don't have it spooled up here, but you do have 3 handouts right now. You
because
have-
these are prioritized by the council last year.
Yeah. So please let me complete the finish. So one thing you have is the proposed FY 2021 work program. The second one you have is the 2019-2020 programs that, work program items that we reviewed last time, but that are not completed or will complete in this fiscal year, 19-20 fiscal year. That's this one. That's this one. You have the input received from commissions December 2019 to January 2020. So regardless of whether these items appeared in the work program or not, this is all their input. And then each item that was put into the work program, at least at this point, has been asterisked so that the commissions can see what's been onboarded into the proposed work program, what has not been. That's this so far. So if you would like to review the 1920 items in terms of status and why they're not, I thought we had done that before as part of the work program review in the last February 10th session. So,
Did we talk about, I think we had status on whether they will be finished this year or not, or,
yes.
but we did not talk about which one will be dropped and why, did we? I don't
So there
remember
was a
talking about
section
that.
in that presentation that demonstrated the ones that would not finish for whatever reason, whether it was canceled, whether it was on hold for some reason. But we can review that again. I mean, that's all these are. This
Yeah, the status was canceled or on hold, but then we didn't talk about dropped from next year or why, right?
This one. Well, open the mic, you can talk to it if you want. Here.
All right, so there's some that aren't really dropped, but they're part of the CIP, right?
They'll be
And then there's
onboarded into CIP, yes.
There's some that are canceled, and
So I think a lot of these items were, as Deb described in the last meeting. However, there is, and it, as Leong has, Councilmember Chow has pointed out, development accountability was a multi-year in-progress item that's now been put on hold. And if our community development director could speak to that.
Yeah, I certainly can. Thanks, Katie. That was an item that we brought up for the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission did not prioritize that for this fiscal year. That doesn't mean it won't go back in the next fiscal year, but for this fiscal year, it was not included by the Planning Commission.
In Planning Commission dropped it.
Planning Commission did not
The
prioritize
reason
that.
why is that? Did they give a reason?
They prioritized the ones that they would like the department to take a look at and forward to council for approval.
But wait, so this year we have objective standard study, right? We had phase 1, phase 2, so those are ongoing?
Yeah, so
Because I don't remember seeing that here.
Sure, that's part of the review and updated general plan. So that's an item that we envision that will be part of our general operations. We just absorb that as an operation for departments, as opposed to coming back annually as a special project. That we're just going to absorb that as an operation.
I think objective standards update has to be added to the program. That's not a general operation. Because when it's on the work program, we will be able to ask updates. That's not general operation.
Sure, for this particular item, I think we were planning on bringing back updates, not let you ask, but bring back those updates.
Right, because you still have a portion of them in the 1920 work plan. As a reminder, we finished the R1 and Parkland updates recently that we brought back to council. We still have work to do, and so that will finish by the end of this fiscal year.
No, objective standards is when I think we went through all the standards in the general plan and decide at that time, I think we had phase 1, which we can implement immediately, and the city attorney did bring something that we adopted last year. But then there were a long list of items of how we can make our standards more objective so that it won't be abused or where it's confusing. These are things that's not operational. These are policy making. And these, I understand that there are a lot of them we need to further prioritize. So this is a multi-year project. It can be done by the end of this year. It needs to be placed in the work program, right?
Yeah, there's some that'll finish this 1920 year work program by June, and then there was, quote, it wasn't a perfect phase 3 that we had decided would be in the following year if you looked at the 1920 work program item. And if council wants to put that as a work program item, the phase 3 portion, I'll call it, into the 2021 one, we can certainly decide to do that, but I would want all council to want to do that.
so what size is that?
It's a extra large, probably.
Okay,
It's a pretty
so we
big
have
effort.
to take something else out.
It's pretty big.
Wait. You were saying this is operational, so you were planning to do it anyway.
Yes.
It was just not listed in the work program. So all I'm requesting is to improve transparency, to list that as one of the work program, so that we understand that this is something we are working on, which is clear objective standard in our general plan and the municipal code.
So you want to add
So we are
that?
not adding an item. It's an item just moved from operational to
Just for
more
visibility?
in the work program, right?
Well, I think also too is when you have an item under operationals, that's something that doesn't necessarily stop at this fiscal year, right?
You just continue.
It continues.
Yeah, it's a multi-year
continues.
program.
Right.
It's-
So if council wishes, we hear a consensus, we can move the item as a multi-year item as opposed to limit to just this particular fiscal year.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we'll be able to
I mean, it's
complete
not operational because we are making new policies.
Sure.
So it's
Fair
not
enough.
just implementing an existing policy, right?
We just thought that would provide some comfort knowing that it's something that we're going to be doing on a standing basis. But if you want that to show
So
up
do
as
we
as
have
an
two
ongoing
others that
process.
want to work it?
I could support that too. I don't know. John or Darcy?
Could we describe in more detail what the scope of this project would be? Just a little bit more background and, what would a multi-year effort entail?
Sure. I think last year we went through an exercise to identify a number of, I forget how many, a number of maybe close to 100 items through the Planning Commission and public, staff, a number of items that went through City Council as well to take a look at those. We kind of parceled them out into phase 1, 2, and 3 with the assistant to the City Attorney's Office. So what we're looking at, Council adopted phase 1 and 2. What we're looking at is the remainder phase 3 items.
Yeah, no, I think this is an ongoing project that we should be looking at, in fact. You're talking about our objective factors analysis that we did some cleaning up, and I tend to agree with members of the public that we should be proactive as opposed to reactive. That's probably good for our jurisdiction all around. And if we are indeed proactive, we can potentially identify sites and things that we can be doing on a zoning level that can really minimize the impacts and the negative feelings throughout the community. So I think this is very much an ongoing project that we need to be considering. If we put enough thoughtful time into it, we could probably come up with, not the make everyone happy 100% of the time solution, but at least something that optimizes, the space available, which is limited, and puts the stakeholders together with the limited spaces that we have. I know our city manager is going forth and potentially even trying to secure us greater sources of funding, because of course money is a very significant factor in addition to the fact that you have limited amounts of space. And so, this is a holistic effort. If we are really unhappy about, development money going into the state and influencing legislation that ultimately, people like to say, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. But, if you're really extending that, it's the enemy of the good for now, but really bad in the long term. I mean, if we want to be able to identify the legislation that will get this done in an honest way and isn't necessarily something where, a lot of reasonably engaged and intelligent people can look at and go, this is just done by the influence of development dollars. This isn't really looking at the problem from a long-term basis. If we really want to do that, then we should be undertaking precisely this kind of effort on a multi-year basis. And so, I would encourage our city manager to continue with those efforts. I think we should be looking at our zoning. We should be looking at all these various objective factors. Objective factors is simply a response to one piece of legislation that the majority of us believe was really ill-advised. It was created under the auspices of something that would help a problem that in the long term is actually making much worse. Okay. And so if we could just take a look at this and keep on engaging with our stakeholders on the state level and across the board, let's just go ahead and
I'm confused
and
about the process here. I thought we were going to go all the way through and then come back to these things so council members could weigh in. I realize now we're into comments on one slide. I think we have members of the public that would like to speak before we weigh in. I think that's the Brown Act process, and I would respectively request through our mayor that we hear from the public, or at least follow some consistent process that somebody can articulate here.
I mean, I think before we get on to what should be on the work plan for the next year, we might want to discuss what got taken off that we don't believe should be taken off.
That makes sense.
I will start with the,
Do you want to start at the beginning of the list on
Or
page?
should we? I think
Just
the
for the
question
members of the
was-
public, can we set some expectation about when we get to hear from them? I think, we have students and others that need to get home.
I'm happy to let them do public comment now,
Yeah,
but
I mean,
it's
I've
not.
officially finished my presentation part, so you can do
Okay,
public
all right, let's
comment.
move straight to public comment then. Sometimes the public likes to comment after they hear what we have to say.
Well, I wasn't trying to preempt the presentation,
Okay.
but I noticed that we had immediately dived into comments
Yeah.
rather than hearing from the
Okay,
public.
let's do oral
I
then.
think it makes sense that we don't comment now. However, maybe the public would like to know what's being dropped. Could the staff maybe quickly go over what was
Well,
dropped?
I think they have copies of this too, don't they? Okay,
Could,
right.
could I ask just one question about general? And that is, the numbering, how did the numbering wind up? Are all these things equally weighted, or is number one conceivably going to get more push than
No,
number 15?
no,
It's just a
not-
list.
It's
Okay.
not in.
And the numbers right now coincide with the slides so that you can.
Okay, so
like, if
let's
you
start
wanted to
with
do something-
public comment.
Yep.
I've got a number of cards. Jennifer Griffin, followed by Jennifer Sheeran, followed by Henry Chang and Karen Chang together. So welcome, Jennifer. And I'll have my phone here with the times.
Okay. Do I have you have
Go.
a big thing on it? So I usually nail it, usually within 3 minutes. So I'm a darn good public speaker, sorry. 20 years for the city. Anyway, hi, I'm Jennifer Griffin, and I attended the last Monday's strategic meeting, which I think is a totally cool name. Makes us sound very, very important. First of all, I'm going to start off, we need to protect heart of the city at all costs. I am willing to go the 9 yards to protect that. That has been a goal for 20 years, especially on the east end of Cupertino. San Jose has the urban village creeping down Stevens Creek Boulevard, and you can see it rolling out on South De Anza Boulevard going toward Prospect, where they like to build their buildings really, really, really close to the road, like on top of the sidewalk. There's no room for trees. I don't know, they don't seem to understand San Jose is on the other side, but that's okay. Santa Clara is on the other side. I don't want to keep dissing San Jose. It's a great city. It's older than San Francisco. The other thing is we need to protect retail in Cupertino. The Kmart was closed in Scotts Valley. I found that out when I was trying to go there and buy some clothing on the weekend. We need to make sure we have retention of vital resources, grocery stores, pharmacies, and gas stations, hardware, places to buy household necessities like light bulbs. We can't forget that. The other thing is when we're talking about quality of life, we need to have protection of local control, peace of mind for residents from political abuse from predatory politicians who are not from Cupertino. What will come from the introduction of new housing bills in the February arena? I have had no peace of mind in the last 2 to 3 years since this housing drama has begun. I'm sorry, they are ostracizing a lot of the residents in the state. I didn't vote for these people. We're talking about Mr. Weiner, Mr. Chu, Mr. Tang, and Mrs. Skinner, some other folks, some other people in Southern California, Laura Pendler, I think is her name. Where are we going with this? Is this socialist Bolshevik land? I mean, I thought that we lived in a democratic state, but we the people of the state, have had no ability to vote on this, and I'm really getting tired of it. We need to work on local control to make sure that Cupertino retains its quality of life. We have to prevent abuse from Sacramento politicians who have gotten kicked up the food chain and they don't care about their constituents. San Francisco is a triplex. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. And next we have Jennifer Sheeran, followed by Henry Chang and Karen Chang together. Welcome, Jennifer.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out on this actually beautiful evening. I'm speaking today as a resident. even though I am a commission member, but I'm not speaking on behalf of the Bicycle Pedestrian Commission, just for myself. I wish to make a brief comment regarding item number 5 on the transportation list, if anybody wants to flip to it. It's a multimodal traffic count pilot. After some brief discussion this afternoon with our transportation manager, he confirmed what I had believed to be true, which is we already have traffic cameras at a bunch of intersections, and we've performed traffic studies along McClellan because obviously with the class 4 bike lanes going in, we wanted to do a before and after, and so a lot of that's already going on. So there's $45,000 right now being proposed for traffic counting by the TIC Commission at some intersections, which seems redundant to our current infrastructure. I also mentioned this to Bill Mitchell and just a few minutes ago, and he said the budget would be a way to focus a study on the Ragnarok Creek Trail, which an issue I had hoped would be, would go away after we had the vote. The behind-the-scenes killing would kind of go away. So though $45,000 is not like a really big budget item, it's important to be careful, I think, with all of our funds and use them towards better transportation use, such as future for smart signalization that might be in the next budget cycle, and just to look to not just study things, but also to do things, because I think we want to make a real impact with our limited funds. Thank you for your consideration and your work on behalf of the city.
Okay, so
Thanks.
this is one of the items that I had an X next to, wondering why it was necessary. So, Bill, or can you comment?
Hi, I'm Bill Mitchell. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for the city. One of the things that TIC was looking for is, as we continue to try to be more data-driven, one of the things I continually hear is, what's the impact and what's the end result? We need to be able to measure these things a little bit better than we do today. And currently we pay for some of these traffic studies to happen. Sensors can do that. And if we put those sensors up and we manage it properly, we'll be able to get that information not only when the traffic study is happening, but real time every day. So we're looking at not only measuring traffic flow, whether it's in multimodal, means it can be a vehicle, pedestrian, bicycle, and we're looking at that type of data. And again, it's our role as technologists is kind of provide that data to staff so that they can make the key decisions in planning and public works.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can add on to that as Roger Lee, Director of Public Works. So we have some capability to do different counts now, but knowing that there can be better, more enhanced ways to do that, that's what we're interested in doing and working with Bill and his group to do that.
Okay, thank you. Henry Chang and Karen Chang, followed by Nori. Welcome, Henry.
Hi.
And
Good evening. My name is Karen Chang. My husband Henry and I are pulling together our 2 allotted times to speak. First, I'd like to thank the Cupertino City Council for asking Verizon to relocate the small cell site that was originally proposed on the edge of Jollyman Park. This action has put a temporary halt to the installation. We're not against technology. We believe wireless antenna belong in commercial and industrial districts, but not in residential neighborhoods or near elementary schools. Wireless companies do not share their antennas with one another, so antennas could potentially be installed all over our city. We want independent scientific evidence that 4G and 5G is safe. On September 26, 2018, the FCC created a new regulation that would help accelerate the deployment of 4G and 5G sites throughout the U.S. Thus, many cities and states are now protesting. On January 14, 2019, Palo Alto Congresswoman Anna Eshoo introduced Federal Bill H.R. 530 called Accelerating Broadband Development by Empowering Local Communities Act of 2019. It would invalidate the FCC's September ruling, giving power back to local governments on deciding where wireless antenna can be located. On June 27, 2019, Senator Dianne Feinstein proposed Bill 2012 called Restoring Local Control Over Public Infrastructure Act of 2019. This bill nullifies rules issued by the FCC that revoke state and local authorities to regulate telecommunications equipment deployment and to determine the amount of payment for the use of such equipment. Both bills, H.R. 530 and S. 2012, are in their early stages and have a lot of support. Recently, many cities have taken legal actions against the FCC's September 2018 ruling. Over a dozen cities, including San Jose, Seattle, and Los Angeles, challenged the FCC over these rulings. Other municipalities have written up various restrictions on where cell antennas can be located. The City of Palo Alto has adopted the following restrictions, and we would like Cupertino to consider enforcing similar ones. Not in residential areas unless all other options have been exhausted. Place cell towers in commercial and industrial districts. Erect towers on corners instead of in front of houses. 600 feet from schools instead of the previous 300 feet. 600 feet from other cell towers. 20 feet from any building, and consider placing them underground.
Can we get this stuff on the screen?
Oh, sorry.
All right, and you can have some more time because of
thank
this.
you.
Okay.
Okay. Should I go over them again, or no?
No, I think
Okay.
that's fine.
Last year, the FCC tried to install wireless antennas on Indian reservations. On March 15, 2019, Oklahoma's United Kiowa Band of Cherokee Indians sued the FCC's attempt to install small cell sites without consulting the tribes. A citizen of Maryland named Edward B. Myers didn't want wireless antennas in his neighborhood either, so he added an intervener brief to the lawsuit. Deservedly, on August 9, 2019, they won an order overruling the FCC's attempt to prevent local environmental and historical reviews. The court ruled that, quote, the commission did not sufficiently justify an order allowing telecom providers to deploy 5G small cell infrastructure at heritage sites without consulting tribes or undergoing historic preservation and environmental reviews, unquote. This new ruling against the FCC applies to every state throughout the U.S. Now other cities have a legal way to get a temporary stay, postponing the installation of 4G and 5G, giving them more time for the FCC's September 2018 ruling to be overturned. Napa, Petaluma, and Maui have used the following excerpt to acquire temporary stays on any further installation of wireless antenna. Today we will email the City Council the website from which this information was obtained. Quote, I would like to see the substantial written evidence in the file that shows that the wireless industry and the FCC have completed the court-mandated environmental assessment or environmental impact statement, because if they haven't, then everything must stop. No more applications, no more processing, no more installations, because every application is now incomplete, unquote. Since the wireless antennas have been once the wireless antennas have been installed, it's highly unlikely that the wireless companies will remove existing antennas, even if there's evidence that they are unsafe. We are asking the Cupertino City Council to buy us more time until the federal government does independent scientific studies on the safety of 4G and 5G. This is one way that the Cupertino City Council can help preserve all of its citizens' quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think on one of the slides you said consider placing the cells underground. How would that work?
That's just one of the Palo Alto's restrictions. They're asking if they can possibly be put underground.
So I put,
Okay.
I looked it up while the speaker was speaking, and indeed Palo Alto has considered placing not the antennas underground, but the equipment underground, as
Oh,
opposed
okay,
to
that
on the
makes
pole
sense.
itself.
Okay. Okay, next we have Nori, followed by Jean Bedord, followed by Connie Cunningham. Welcome, Nori.
How does it work? There you go. Mayor, council members, city manager, and chief innovation technology officer, and city engineer,
and then and the officers. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak about cell tower. There are 19 cell towers were already built, and 14 more are proposed by Verizon and AT&T as of August last year. We don't know how often this GIS information is updated. Recent merged T-Mobile and Sprint would like to build their own cell towers. The number could be doubled. We live here in Cupertino, brain of Silicon Valley, as a mayor named. We are not against the technology. Smart City is in the city work program. 5G Smart City may benefit for public safety, surveillance, traffic flow, noise, or environment. It has almost unlimited potentials, but we are also concerned the risk of health and privacy. 5G technology is essential for creating smart city. 5G is shorter wavelength, means 5G will bring faster broadband speed than 4G, but it also means much shorter range, probably 400 to 500 feet. Therefore, 5G will require an enormous expansion of current cell tower infrastructure in order to function. There will be cell facilities on almost all light poles. Legislations, HR 530, Accelerating Broadband Development by Empowering Local Community Act of 2019, introduced by Congresswoman Anna Esho, and also similar one, S 2019, Restoring Local Control over Public Infrastructure Act of 2019, introduced by U.S. Senator Dianne Feinstein. The bill would overturn the new FCC rules and restore local control concerning the placement of 5G equipment on phone and utility facilities, utility poles. It takes for a long time past this, both bills, Senate and House and Senate to pass and President to sign. So it takes a long time. So we request Cupertino to consider to create some type of restriction where the widest communication facility can be built, or Cupertino can adopt the regulation that Palo Alto or other cities have taken to protect their citizens. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Nori. Jean Bedord, followed by Connie Cunningham, followed by Genevieve Kolar. Welcome, Jean.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Jean Bedord, and I am a resident of Cupertino. Under the housing goal, when I reviewed that, the projects, in my mind, are inadequate for the housing challenges that we face. Today, you should have received a letter from Cupertino for All expressing their concern about housing and addressing housing needs. It was signed by 3 former mayors as well as community leaders. As you know, tomorrow night, the Planning Commission will be reviewing the RENA report. It's very striking in the staff report. No new housing developments were submitted to the city in 2019. Who wants to work with the city council like this? I feel that your work plan needs to become more robust. And in particular, you should be addressing zoning changes to allow multifamily housing. In the area that I live, there are a lot of large lots. But at this point, it's literally illegal to do a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex. Please take a more robust approach to help solve our housing crisis. Thank you.
Okay, next is Connie Cunningham, followed by Genevieve Kolar, followed by Janet Van Zoren. Welcome, Connie.
Good evening, council and staff. My name is Connie Cunningham. I think many of you know me. I have been a resident for many years, and about a year ago, I joined the Housing Commission. I'm not speaking on behalf of the Housing Commission this evening or on any part of what we put in as part of our program. I did email you earlier in that regard. However, this evening, what I did want to speak to was the same letter that Jean Bedord just spoke to, and the fact that what we need in our city is more housing. I know it has been said in at least 2 occasions at mayor's meetings that our situation is not dire and that we don't need to have other people coming into our houses, to our area to live. I wanted to just say that it's not just RHNA numbers that we need to talk about. What we need to talk about are the actual needs of real people who need places to live. Ever since I started following it, which has been about 2 years ago for the BMR apartments, I thought our city had such a fine plan, and it is a fine plan as far as it went and as far as it goes. But we have not increased the number of BMR units for rent or for sale, except for the veranda. And that's not even our BMR program. That's a separate program entirely. So we haven't added to our program in decades. Additionally, we have very few market price homes between $450,000 and $800,000. That used to sound like a really big number to me. $800,000 wouldn't have been anything I would have purchased. Let's just say that's what we expect regular folks to pay for homes, and we don't even have any in our city, or very few, if anybody wants to quibble over that point. The statistics have been said many times that for every tech employee that comes to our city that can afford the multi-million-dollar homes, there is an estimate of 4 or more services people, hospitality people, storekeepers, teachers, government staff, that need houses that make significantly less and need to have that missing middle. For a healthy and sustainable city, we need homes for people of all incomes and all abilities. Change can be scary. I've certainly heard enough of that. When I first came to a Housing Commission meeting, I was thrilled to see that the ADU changes were being made. I thought that was such a good idea, so easy, so simple. Nobody has to come and ask for anything, and you don't have to make decisions about it. I was really quite surprised to find out there was such huge pushback on that particular aspect of it. There are affordable housing developers that are building in our region, but not in Cupertino. There's tons of money coming down from the state. Big corporations are pouring money into different coffers, and yet we don't get offers here in our city. So the thing is, we need to get ahead of this. We need to start building houses for the people who live and work in Cupertino. I thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Connie. Genevieve Kolar, followed by Janet Van Zoren. Followed by Janet Van Zoren. There's 2 of them here. Okay. Oh, I think it's for 2 different. So, welcome, Janet. Oh, sorry, Genevieve is next, right? Oh, okay. Okay, so welcome, Janet. I have 2 cards for you. Why is that?
Because I didn't understand how this was all working.
Oh, okay.
And so I wanted to speak toward the housing section, numbers 8 and numbers 9, and that's why I put in 2 cards, one for 8 and one for 9. But I guess I should address both of them now, if that's okay. At any rate, thank you all for having this meeting. I really want to let you know how much I support the items 8 and 9 in the housing talking points, but I also want to make sure that everyone understands, I really believe truly and deep in my heart for housing for all, for people at all ability levels and for people at all economic levels. I think a healthy city, a healthy community has opportunities for living here for everybody. And so that being inclusive, I think, is very important. As many of you know, I've been a founding member of the Housing Choices Coalition and have been advocating for housing for people with developmental disabilities for over 20 years now here in the Bay Area. I've never been successful yet in getting that to happen here in Cupertino. So I'm really happy to see that you're including ELI housing for people with developmental disabilities in these two subject areas of the housing recommendations for the city work plan. I would like to encourage you, I'm happy that you're going to be working on the BMR linkage fee studies further so that that can get taken care of. And I'd like you to consider, once that's been determined, working on an inclusionary ordinance so that all levels of affordability are included in the requests that are made by the city for new development. With regard to Section 9, this was on the work plan last year, and I'm very happy to see that it's on the work plan again this year. I support trying to create housing for people with developmental disabilities that's affordable to them in any way that we can. So moving forward, I'd love to see the Byrne Avenue project come about at some point. That's a small project, and I'd also love to see the council moving forward and supporting the Mary Avenue project, which the Cupertino Rotary has proposed and is in the process of preparing. That project would include a much larger number of housing units for people with developmental disabilities, and it's wonderful that the Cupertino Rotary has taken that on as one of their projects for their housing committee. And I hope you will take that project seriously and help guide us if you see any problems with what we're trying to do. But hopefully it's going to be a very successful project. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I was under the impression that the Mary Avenue was the ELI housing, and the Byrne Avenue, we were looking more at moderate rate housing. Am I wrong about that?
I don't think you're incorrect about the Mary Avenue housing being ELI.
Right.
I don't remember the level for the Byrne Avenue piece.
Oh, because I'm looking at this right on here, and it says
Byrne Avenue.
ELI, and I thought because of the lack of any transportation there, it was going to be more like moderate rate.
Is the Byrne the one next to
Blackberry Farm?
from
Seaford.
entrance?
It's the Seaford property.
Right.
At the
Can
gate
I
there.
comment on that, Stephen?
Sure, go ahead.
It's my understanding that that's still open, that could go either way.
Okay.
That people from the community have been touring it. We've had an opportunity to tour it. The Bay Area Housing Corporation has also had an opportunity. I think that's been given to the Habitat for Humanity group, I'm not sure. But I think that will be sort of open to who can present to the council
Right.
the best project for that opportunity.
Okay, that's fair enough.
That's my understanding.
Okay. All right, thank you. Next is Neil Park McClintock, followed by Seema Linskog, followed by Liana Crabtree. Welcome, Neil.
Hello. First, I just want to acknowledge that the students had to go. Some other folks had to go as well. In terms of transparency, because that was brought up by Councilmember Chow, I think it's really important that we are proactive in our outreach, particularly to the demographics who don't get a voice like students, and so that means actively going to campus. And that was just an idea that I wanted to throw out there for members of the council. I really did want to thank the staff, especially city manager, for putting this work program together. I find it to be a much more streamlined version that is easier to understand as a member of the public. But in particular, I wanted to talk about housing. So as you've all seen, our RHNA numbers, they're not great. The cycle is more than halfway through, and for folks who aren't familiar with what RHNA is, it's just basically our housing targets that are assigned by the state. We are only 28% overall met in terms of housing need. We only have a few years left, and just a heads up, our next cycle is going to be 3 to 5 times higher, just saying. So if we want to get ahead of the curve, the time is now. Otherwise, all of our concerns about local control and maintaining a say over how our city looks are going to go to waste. The time is now. If our RHNA targets are in the thousands, I guarantee you with Cupertino's limited land, we only have 2 solutions, and they have to go in tandem. Upzoning and rezoning. There is literally no other way to meet those targets. And so the sooner that we accept that, the better. Start doing the community outreach, speaking to residents, explain to them why it's okay to have different types of housing. It's okay to have transportation that runs alongside housing. These are all acceptable things. They don't run counter to the idea of having a good neighborhood. In fact, I would argue that our community is dying. Cupertino is dying. The median age goes up every year. Our population actually went down, and I did fact check that because someone on the council asked me. That's what the county assessor is saying. Our population went down while the entire Bay Area is growing. That's insane. We have 3 schools that could potentially be closing. De Anza College is dying. When are we going to wake up? We need to wake up now. We need to start building diverse types of housing of all kind. We need to connect it through transit. It's not the state's problem that we haven't done this. The numbers are right there in front of you. It's from your own city. So we need to start taking this seriously. We have 0 low-income housing, and also all the rules that affect market rate housing also affect affordable housing. You can't build a sufficient amount of affordable housing unless you rezone and upzone also. When I've talked to the developer of the Veranda project, you know what she said? She said she didn't build more than 2 stories because she said that the council would fight it. She said the city would fight it. Imagine if we could have housed even more people there on site. She also said that we had parking minimums that added to the cost that made it much more expensive. It's a senior housing project. None of those folks drive. Why do we have an empty parking lot when we could have probably doubled the size of that project? We provided a little shortcut for no reason to get to the freaking Stevens Creek. So my point is just like, yes, I'm very upset. I don't know any young people moving back to Cupertino. None of your kids want to move back. You know why? Because this city is dying. It's not enjoyable. There's nowhere affordable to live. They can't afford a $2 million home. Please, wake up. Thank you.
Okay. Next is Seema Lindskog, followed by Liana Crabtree. Welcome, Seema.
Wow, I don't think I can follow that. Okay.
Try.
Okay, so hi, City Council members. Nice to see you guys again. I wanted to talk about transportation item number 5 as my first topic. I'd like to request that we be thoughtful about where we collect data. Jennifer talked about it earlier about the traffic sensors. Our understanding is that this is a way to measure traffic around Rignar Creek, and this feels like something that's been discussed and settled by the City Council. We discussed it for over 18 months. We've collected all kinds of data on this. Let's not relitigate something that's been settled by the City Council over and over and over again. It just seems like you guys are busy, you have better things to worry about. The second thing I wanted to bring up is the IoT sensors. As I was going through the very exhaustive, wonderful list that you guys have put together, I noticed there's 6 different proposed projects using IoT sensors. There's a transportation item number 4, which is traffic signaling. Number 5, the traffic count. Sustainability item 6, the trash sensor. That's a particularly good one. Sustainability item 7, measure ground moisture. Quality of life item 2, noise sensors. Quality of life item 4, pollution sensors. And my question is, that's an awful lot of IoT sensors. Who's going to be deploying and troubleshooting and managing all of those? I have trouble with just like, a video doorbell in my house. Just saying, this is going to be a huge complexity that I don't know that we need. What are we going to do with all this data? Is all this data really going to be actionable? For example, trash sensors. People don't bring their trash cans in because they're at work. So, sending them a notification saying, hey, the trash in your trash can's gone, is not going to be all that useful because they're not going to drive home to put their trash cans away. So how actionable is this data? And are we really prepared to handle this level of complexity of having 6 different IoT projects? So so yeah, time and effort, data actionability, and is this really the best use of our limited funds? Because I keep hearing we have limited funds. I don't know if this is really the #1 priority on our list. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And last I have Liana Crabtree. Oh, yeah, Bill, did you want to answer Seema about trash can sensors?
So first of all, the conversation that I had earlier, it's a mischaracterization that Rignard Trail is the place that we're going to put the sensors. It was one that's being discussed. So there's multiple places. One is McCullen, where the new bike lane is. See how successful we are with getting people there. We're talking about initiatives around Bub and McCullen around the school. We need to be able to measure if we're successful with the traffic calming. So those are the things that we're looking for those types of sensors. As far as the other IoT type sensors, some of that will be managed services, just like we do with other things where we'll have vendors manage those. As far as trash, the key for that, the genesis was more for us to be able to pick up by volume, not pick up by day of week. So in our parks and things like that, instead of sending ground crews out to empty trash cans, let's do it when the cans are full. And more importantly, what if the cans are full on days when we don't plan to pick them up? This is the thing that alerts people after events and those kind of things. So we're just trying to do it a smarter way than we're currently doing it.
Okay.
Can you comment on the cost?
As far as where the cost came from?
I think her concern was this might be costly on the sensors.
So most of these, all of these are pilots, and some of them are to define, what's the return on investment. For example, on the noise one. So you can have people come out and do studies on noise and see what they're at. We're going to pay money for that. If we put sensors out and we get that around the clock, 24/7, is that a better use of the city's funding? Because what we can tell as a noise threshold, it's only at the time of the study. That's it. Once that goes away, we'll be asking for another study 6 months down the road. If we start deploying sensors, then we'll be able to have it in place. So we're going to be looking at a return on investment. Is there value in actually putting out sensors to do that? Same with particulate level. That's a very big emotional concern around here, especially around Lehigh. And if we can measure that and hopefully calm some of the emotions that are out there, or if it is actually a situation that we need to resolve quickly, then we have the data that we can show. Right now it's emotional. Well, I feel I'm choking. Okay, I don't know how to act on that. Is that a measurable result or not? The IoT sensors will give us things that are measurable that we can provide information and make better decisions on.
Okay, thank you. All right, welcome, Liana.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Leanna Crabtree. I serve as a library commissioner, and I will be referencing some things for the library commission, but I am speaking on behalf of myself. I have a little bit of a list. It kind of goes back and forth. The first item was under public engagement and transparency, item number 7, specific to meeting room space. Something that the library commission had an opportunity to talk about in February. We invited the Foothill De Anza trustee, Patrick Ahrens, to come speak. We're trying to look at opportunities for maybe some shared use at De Anza College for meeting space, collaborative space, scholarship space. And maybe there's an opportunity for the city to be supportive of this effort. there are meeting rooms in a number of places at De Anza College. I mean, I've looked just at the library, and then apparently there are some new spaces as well that maybe if we could bring more of the community to De Anza College for those meeting uses. When I visited the De Anza College about 3 times this past month or so, there were meeting spaces available at sort of prime evening times, and so maybe that's one way we could solve. I know the library district is very concerned about program space, and the community has a large interest in meeting room space, and we are a few years down the road before we'll have any of that resolved with our new library. So anytime we could do something cooperative with De Anza would be great. The other item under transportation, I was hoping maybe you could consider some effort to bring public transit to Monte Vista High School and Kennedy Middle Schools. There's no bus service for these 2 schools. This is exceptional. I can't think of any other schools where there's maybe 3,000 students who go to Monte Vista and Kennedy combined, and absolutely no VTA service there. As you're well aware, Western Cupertino in general is very poorly served by VTA. So anything we could do to improve that. I know the argument is often that this is a very affluent neighborhood, but other affluent neighborhoods also have bus service. And if we could get more kids off the road, it's just safer. Riding the bus is safer than walking or riding your bike on a very crowded street. The other one is item 3. I would like to voice support for the Bollinger Road study. Bollinger has sort of become the overflow road for Stevens Creek Boulevard, and there's actually Route 25, VTA Route 25 along that road, so people are crossing at many places that are not necessarily safe crossings. So thank you for including the Bollinger Road study for safer crossings and anything that can be done to make that road safer. Also, under quality of life, the Poet Laureate program, I'm not sure how aware you all are. The Poet Laureate program used to be administered separately, and then I think around 2018, after our current Poet Laureate was selected, the role was then transferred to the Library Commission to be on the selection, responsible for the selection. But that's not currently reflected in the municipal code, that's part of our charter. So it needs to be captured somewhere. If you're not going to include it in your work program because you're saying it's an ongoing item, somewhere it needs to be captured that is a Library Commission responsibility.
Okay, please finish up.
Thank you for this process, though this whole process was much smoother from the commission point of view. To handle the work program where we could offer input was much smoother. Thank you very much.
Could you clarify? I think I asked the question of city manager. For some commissions, they have operational programs that's also part of their work program. They can continue to put that on their work program, even though it's not on the council's work program, right?
I
so
think
like
so.
The Poet Laureate. Library Commission can continue to put that.
Yeah,
like PAD, if they have any operational items, they can continue to monitor that.
Yes, and I was going to respond to we were just chatting about where the Poet Laureate action should be, and we were discussing whether it should be in the Muni Code or in the Charter, but we'll figure it out if it's not there.
Yeah, and one thing we are doing when we're discovering things in the Muni Code that need to be fixed, there's obviously every city has a lot of things in the Muni Code that may be obsolete. We're fixing them as we find them. I know some cities do go through the whole Muni Code periodically to find those items. I don't think that's on our work plan, though. Okay.
So maybe we need to add this to the commission handbook or some kind. I don't think it's written anywhere in when we did the commission engagement review that items that's not on the council work program but on operational basis, commissions can still add it to their own work program. It wasn't really specifically mentioned.
If I can also add to that, the Poet Laureate's a 2-year appointment. So we pushed it back. It's not going to be part of the 2021. It would be part of the 21-22 year. So that's why it's not on this work plan. It would be on the following work plan. It will come back.
Okay. So can we go back now, before we go on the 2020-21 work plan, there was one item that I saw canceled that I think we should consider bringing back, and that is the modernizing the business tax and analyze revenue measures.
Isn't that on there?
I support that.
That's item 3 on page 2 of the canceled items.
So as we discussed at the last strategic planning meeting, this item is rolled into another existing item that is on the work program. So it will be.
Which item is that?
1 second. It's
Number 9, public infrastructure financing strategy, modernize business tax, analyze potential revenue measures, under sustainability, number 9.
I would rather it's a separate item though, because the financing is really.
Yeah, I don't know if this belongs under sustainability because it's not just for public infrastructure that we would consider that. It's for things like affordable housing.
Yeah, we were looking at
and
it as
transportation.
revenue sustainability, like a broader definition of sustainability, but if you want it split out, I don't have a problem with that at all.
I would like it split out. I think it's important enough
And
to
under,
split it out.
and under what goal? Under just quality of life and other, separate?
It is part of financial sustainability, so that's why we put it there.
Right, it is yeah.
Okay.
When I look at sustainability, okay.
But I think separating is better visibility, so that we remember to update on that specific item, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure sustainability is a good title because I keep thinking of Sustainability Commission when I see sustainability. I mean, can we come up with a better...
Like a more inclusive...
Right, something that... Yeah, you're smart.
We'll come up with something. Sustainability and something.
It's
We'll come up
more
with something.
accountability. Oh no, don't know.
I'll come up with something. Make a note.
And
We'll make
I
a
think,
note to come up with something.
Along similar line, I think Mayor mentioned to me he would like to consider sales tax potentially, so that
right.
The regional sales tax.
The issue is that there's a limit to what the sales tax can be, and we are below other Santa Clara County cities, and as much as I think sales taxes are regressive, if we don't do it, then we will lose that money to others.
Part of those items will be discussed, those 2 meetings that were in blue that are to be determined. We plan on coming back with an updated forecast and some options for different revenue measures for the council to consider as we look at a long-term fiscal strategy for the city.
Okay. I agree with Stephen's concern.
Yep.
At the ABAG exec meeting this week, the board voted to move forward with advocacy principles for a combined transit tax. There was some interest in pursuing something other than sales tax, but a bunch of folks weren't willing to speak on that at all. Only 2 did. This would be combined with a measure that would provide bonding for affordable housing, of which some would be returned to source, but certainly not all. Now, in the state of California, we have a limit on how much sales tax we can charge. The limit's currently 10%. I'm sure the legislature could figure out how to ratchet up to 11, 12, 13, 15, whatever it takes. But I'm just taking a look at results. It's not clear to me that any proceeds, any substantial proceeds from this measure, were it to win approval, would come back to the city. I will note that all the transit proceeds from RM3 are going exclusively to projects in San Jose. I think we have to start looking out for ourselves.
Okay.
I think my comment would be these couple items, including the update to some of the municipal code and stuff. I think if we leave them in the topics that are already on the list, they essentially become unnoticed. I really think we need something that deals with the city infrastructure or city operations and pull these ones that are very important. You know, they should be fundamental principles that we're working to, and a work plan item to making sure that these things are always the latest and greatest for our community. So I just don't think we have a category for these items.
So, yeah, now that I see it here, if we could just fix the sustainability word.
We will do that.
I think modernizing the business tax is okay under here, but clearly we're not getting the money we need for affordable housing. I mean, one-time gifts from corporations are not going to solve this problem.
I mean,
And-
maybe it's sustainability and financing or something that.
Excellent.
Fine.
Or revenues or something like that.
Well,
right?
I mean, too many of us think, well, we have a sustainability commission, so
Right.
this has to be.
Right.
Yes.
But no, this is what's on here,
It's
right, is
broader.
really actually much more.
Right, especially since the single-use plastics ordinance is under this sustainability.
You
It
have
makes it seem like
City Hall on here, you have municipal water system, you have financing strategy, tax property, tax share.
We'll
So
come up-
all of these things really have to do with financials, right?
We'll come up with
It's
something.
more like operational sustainability.
Right,
Yeah.
so call it
Yeah.
economic and operational sustainability.
Yeah,
or
that's
something like
good.
Yeah.
And also, I think for number 6,
Yeah.
make it clear that it's trash collection of public trash cans.
Public
not-
property.
We're not going around putting sensors in everybody's
Trash.
ecology bins.
Okay,
Or maybe we should, no, I don't.
We'll get to 100% diversion really fast, and then we'll get a lot of
Yes, we
complaints
will.
about what we're saying.
yeah. So let me, I'm going to adapt here a little bit what the process was. So it seems like council would like to review the 1920 city work program items that are not going to be completed this year. So that seems like an orderly thing to do. So let me ask each one of you to take a minute, look through these, and if there are any items on this particular spreadsheet of concern in terms of not getting done or not getting added back into the 2021 work program, please review this, and then I'll take input right now.
Actually, can you go through it? Because some of these I'm not sure on hold means cancel or means some are finished. So I'm.
Well, the first.
But there are no status, so I'm. The first one, I don't think we have done anything on it. Development accountability. That's different from objective standards. I misunderstood that. Objective standards is another item.
So why don't we give a couple of minutes for all of council to
Okay.
kind of take a look at the spreadsheets? There's a lot of detail on there. And
Well,
there's-
why don't we just go through each one
Each one?
quickly? I mean, the development
Quickly?
accountability, one of the members of the public, spoke regarding, our progress on permitted RENA projects. Unfortunately, we far exceeded our RENA numbers in terms of
Allocations.
allocation, but, what are we have no leverage to force these property owners to actually build what they were allocated and what they asked for. And as a result, we're not getting the BMR units that are part of those projects. In fact, we're going to start to lose BMR units that are expiring. So I think development accountability is, something that should not be on hold.
Yeah, I remember that one thing we were thinking it was those projects that we have approved, they have done nothing, then they are required to submit to the city annually what they have done, what's their plan, so that they are accountable to the city for their business plan. If we approved, they cannot just do nothing for 10 years. So they are accountable for their disapproval, the entitlement. If they don't submit that plan, we take away that entitlement.
Yeah.
That's a kind of accountability. I think another thing that people brought that up was violation of conditional use permit. Remember that in Palo Alto, when that conditional use permit was violated, Palo Alto City was able to apply fines. But it seems we don't really have that mechanism in Cupertino, so that was another reason we would like to say, okay, can we be hold developer more accountable for what they promise they'll provide the city?
Yeah, I think when it comes to the arena, I mean, I wasn't on the council then, but at that time, I don't think anyone dreamed that a property owner would decide not to build. I mean, at that time, there was such, a shortage of housing and market rate housing that they were all anxious to build. They submitted the plans quickly, and the council approved the plans. Talking about over at Marina and the Hamptons, no one could conceive that they would say, hey, maybe this is not financially possible anymore due to market conditions. But we have to do better next time in the next cycle in terms of the development agreements.
Yeah, so let me try it this way. So number one, let's have, so Ben, why don't we have you do a top level, why it's on hold, but we already heard on this one that we probably want to put it back on the 2021 work program.
Is
Item
there a
number,
status update for number one? Have we done something or not?
We have not been able to do much on this particular item.
I know you have been busy, just curious.
But we did some initial review. This is more of a sort of a regional problem. We've seen that in other jurisdictions as well, having sort of trouble leveraging developers to build after they've received approval.
Yeah.
So some of the things that Councilmember Chow mentioned, those could be something we're thinking about moving forward for new development, new approvals to incorporate, so we have that teeth. And this item during the Planning Commission review did not surface as an item for them to prioritize. So that's why we put it on hold, because we recognize the importance of this. That's why we didn't drop it, we just put it on hold for us to
yeah, and
to
I
pick it back
personally
up.
have talked to at least the two developers who have entitlements that are on hold and I can't get them moving. And then additionally, did you just mention the call we just had with the Office of Pro Tem?
I did not mention that.
So in my Friday update that I sent to council, there was a conversation about how could we get people moving in the future, but nothing that would help resolve the current situation.
Exactly because of that, like Ben said, this item is not for the current ones, but for the future ones, we are going to approve a lot more, I hope.
Yeah.
Then we want to be sure they build, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So that was the only one I saw that
Of this
I
list
thought
that you want to keep on there.
that I would want to keep. I don't know.
Okay, anybody?
The other council members can comment if they
So
see anything else.
let's go down the line. Councilmember Sinks, do you have anything on this particular list of concern if it's delayed or not on the next work program?
I'm sorry, so for which sections?
So you have this particular spreadsheet that talks about projects or things on the 1920 work program that are either canceled, on hold, or not going to finish in this fiscal year.
I'm
Is
sorry,
there
so
anything?
this is, oh, I see.
Yeah, is there anything you would like to discuss, or you're curious about the status, or if you want it on the 2021 work program?
Let's see. I frankly was focused on next year. I think all I would say is there's some continuing urgency around anything the council may want to do in November of 2020. You can't wait until the start of the next fiscal year. If you want to put a measure on the ballot in November 2020, you have to be polling now. You have to develop proposals, and then you have to queue up decisions, because we know by early August, the ballot closes. So I just urged my colleagues, if you want to do something this year, you have to get going. You can't wait till next year. And that's the only
Right.
particular
I
thing
mean,
that
personally, I
of
was
concern.
thinking more about 2022.
Yeah, well.
Then I thought it was a little late for 2020.
Mm-hmm.
I
Okay.
think it's not that late for 2020.
No, it's not impossible, but it's
Okay.
starting to get tight for 2020.
Councilmember Chow, do you have anything specifically on this particular set of
Okay.
1920 work program items that you would like a status on and/or should be considered back for the next work program?
Okay, so number 3, the Heart of the City plan. So what's the status? Why are we dropping that?
It's on hold.
It's on hold.
It's on hold, similar to probably in a much larger scope to compare to development accountability. Item number 1 is that, again, this is an item that the Plan Commission did not prioritize. So, and considering the amount of work necessary to really conduct a comprehensive study and product, we feel like may not be able to complete that this fiscal year. But it didn't drop off or keeping it on for a multi-year.
So this is another clarification of objective standards. One thing that I specifically wish to consider for this that's not listed is the retail space for Heart of the City. We currently have a requirement of 70% frontage needs to be retail. However, there is no requirement for a minimum retail space. So that means someone can redevelop a site, say Target, and provide 0 retail. And I think that will break the walkability or the continuous of commercial space for Stevens Creek for the future. So I wonder, we need to clarify these standards. So I
So are you
think
saying it should be on the work program, or you're not saying it's on the work program?
these standards needs to be clarified. Here we are facing a lot of state laws coming down the line, trying to streamline project. It's a good intention that we want to speed up the improvement process. However, the assumption of a streamlined project is we have very clear standards that's objective, so it's clear what complies, what doesn't. But when we don't have clear standards, or our standards were adopted when the council had the discretion to approve. So a lot of those standards are not clear by default because it was meant for discretionary approval. However, we are moving to a different mode of approving process. We are moving towards streamlined approving. That means clear standards so developers know exactly what to follow. There is no dispute.
So you would like it on the work program, or you don't want it on the work program?
I think it should still be kept on the work
On hold.
program. Yeah.
Is there a second and a third?
I would say, though, that I think it needs to be more clarified in terms of scope. I don't see that it should be as extra large. I mean, to me, that really does put it in a category where it's not going to capture the essence of what we need. Take what we need and somewhere between small and medium and keep it to that, as opposed to something that's extra large that we're talking well over 2,000 hours per year.
So instead
I
of
don't
this
think
scope,
it can be done as small or medium.
unless we just focus on retail.
Yeah, I noticed that item 4 already has the retail.
If you
Item
look at
4
the-
is maintain existing setbacks.
Right. If you
and
look at the
consider
project
minimum
objective column,
retail.
So we could
there's
take.
4 elements in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would not be if we can find something else to take out.
So you're saying the existing, let's see, item number sections. You want to focus this on retail for now?
Because
Is that what you want
in case we lose it forever. In case the project
So you're saying
doesn't
focus
provide
on retail, but keep it on?
Yeah.
Is that what you-
Maybe that would be the first phase, yeah. And then the rest we can
So
see.
yeah, as we go through the slides, we can decide what to take out to fit this in. But it's got to be taken out of planning, correct? Not out of something else.
Right.
Yeah, it'll come out of community development, that's correct.
Right.
I would just add that our intention for the Heart of the City plan is so we can conduct a very comprehensive evaluation. It's an old plan with a lot of areas that could require some updates. So I agree the retail component should be added to the scope,
maybe it's like the general plan. Let's focus on one small portion that's important. Phase 1, let's only do that. And then the continuous long term could be, it should be kept still, but then Planning Commission can every year examine it portion by portion.
So, let's move on.
Okay, so I know that someone has a time constraint, so would you like to defer to Vice Mayor?
Sure, okay.
Paul?
Okay. So number one.
No, we're deferring to Darcy.
Okay.
No, on this list, and I'm counting only 8 items, I can see carving out particular items in number 1, development accountability, particularly with regard to the timetable for entitlements. I think a 10-year entitlement is obviously much too long at this time. I think we should be considering capping it at even 3.
5 or 3.
Or 5. I think 5 was the default, and then we provided 10 for one particular developer who was providing a monetary amount in order to help out with civic center programs. And in exchange, we enlarged that time from, I believe it was 5 to 10 years. And so in this environment, it really just doesn't make sense to, go in that direction. I think we should probably be looking at actually shrinking that amount of time. With regard to the other accountability mechanisms, I think one of the members of the public emailed us about a joint study between the council and the planning commission on things like density bonuses and
we're planning
waivers
that.
and concessions.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a really good idea. In terms of just kind of generalizing this and going, we want all things developer accountability, I think that's just too vague. Those are the items that I can think of that make sense in the near term. For Heart of the City, I think we should probably have a better idea of what the timetable would look like to do a complete Heart of the City plan. That, of course, is our major corridors of D'Anza to a certain extent, as well as Stevens Creek Boulevard. And so I would really like to hear from the Director of Community Development as to what kind of timetable we would be looking at and how long that comprehensive Heart of the City plan would be anticipated to take. I think trying to do it in a piecemeal fashion is probably not optimal planning, but if there are items from that we could be looking at in this upcoming year, I'd be open to the idea. So on the other 7 items, I didn't see anything that really stuck out as something that I'd like to go ahead and identify. Although the modernizing the business tax and analyzing potential revenue measures does make sense to carve it out into a different item, but we've already talked about that.
Okay. So before you do leave, unrelated to that, one item that we might want to add is looking at the whole GPA gateway process and seeing if we should get rid of it, because it's apparently causing a lot of heartache for a lot of different entities. None of who is happy with it is causing a lot of extra work for our community development department. So if we can put that somewhere in the work plan.
I actually believe we were looking at a study session in this fiscal year that could result in some decision on council's part. So we're splitting that up for now.
So does that have to be on the work plan then? Because it
not for 2021, right?
Okay. So it will be before.
Before 2021.
Okay, I got it. Okay.
So I guess I mentioned that to Deb also. And the GPA authorization procedure, not whether we want to get rid of it or not. It's at the time when council adopted this in 2015, the council actually had a consultant did a study on like 6 cities on how they allow upzoning but provide some more specified benefits. But it's more complicated. So the council decided at the time, we'll just not look at any complex formula and allow total discretion. of the council, and then we have the current GPA authorization procedure. So if we re-examine that, I think please include that consultant report in the meeting so that we can re-examine the whole.
Yeah, and as a reminder, that study session will spool up probably in the next month or so. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if it doesn't, then I just want to go on the record before I leave as saying that I would be absolutely in favor of fiscal year 2020 to 2021, including that. I think that it was a process that was problematic to begin with. I voted against it, and I think that it essentially encouraged us to have 4 meetings about general plan amendments a year, as opposed to potentially none in some years.
The gateway process?
The gateway process, precisely. And it was essentially couched as let's try to figure out what we can do to get some quid pro quo from developers. I didn't like it because of the optics of it. I also don't think it's been particularly efficacious in terms of trying to achieve that stated goal. So I would be all in favor of re-examining that in the next fiscal year if it doesn't show up before
I think
then.
we're going to be re-examining it in the rest of this fiscal year, so it's going to be sooner.
Okay,
so you won't
great.
need to do it in 2021.
Thank you, Mayor, for giving me this opportunity. I'm going to leave around 7:45. If we're still going, I should be back by 10:30. All right, thanks.
Maybe Darcy should give comments about the rest
Right,
of
if there's
the
anything else
program
that you
right
want to
now.
comment.
Yes, I only have 2, very brief. I think city manager's done a great job, staff's done a great job this year of putting this all together. And really, they were on the very first page. They had to do with public engagement and transparency. I think if we're going to be looking at the new city seal and logo, it probably would be a good idea to run it through the Fine Arts Commission.
Absolutely.
Because they could take in some public input with regard to what people would like to see. And then also on item number 4, the pilot online store for city branded items, same comment. I think that's something that the Fine Arts Commission had expressly stated that they had an interest in looking at. So I'd like to see that go through them as well. Thanks.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
John, do you want to go to Councilmember Willie? Or
Right, yeah. You have more stuff on the stuff that's being taken off.
so right now we're just looking
We're not
at
going on to the new stuff yet.
I'll keep it real brief. So I think we've got enough on our current list that I'll just say that I do think number 1, and the fact that it's listed as small, and then an amount of number 3, again, I'd like to see it as small or medium and leave it at that.
So parse down the scope in order to make some, okay, gotcha.
Okay.
So what I was planning on doing was, and I will leave it up to council on how you want to do this, we would take these items that you said you kind of want to keep in 2021 or ongoing. We can take them and kind of size them right, and we can bring back to you then those things that might bump out that we've listed in the 2021 proposed work plan, if that might be, to make space for it so that you guys can see the resulting proposed work program and then go to the next step.
Okay.
If that seems to make sense to you.
So I haven't finished my list.
Okay, but I'm just saying is that an okay process?
See, what, you haven't finished your list from 2019?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
All right.
So
Does that seem like a way forward after we hear from Councilmember Chow?
Yeah. So,
Okay.
try to be brief.
Okay, so number 1 on the orange part, I don't know what is that. The orange part, community garden improvements. I'm just curious. Satellite garden, we haven't seen a proposal for satellite garden. Is it that going to be done by June? That's why it's not in the new program.
Right, this is part of operations or CIP. This is not
So
Correct.
deleted.
This item here is
just
the
under
community garden
CIP.
project, which is now in the CIP instead.
Oh,
The satellite
okay.
gardens is something
Okay.
that the park
And
and
the
Rec-
all-inclusive playground, we haven't received updates on that, so I believe we haven't even seen the design of that, so is that all
Yeah,
will
so
be
that-
under CIP?
That's
right?
under CIP.
That's why,
That's
okay,
right, and
yeah.
you will see.
And then number 4, that is the objective standards, that one that I mentioned. It's a review of general plan and the municipal code for objective standards. We have phases, right?
Yes, we already
So
have
I
that
think
certified.
that should be kept on the work program.
Okay.
And then number 6, it's traffic calming and enforcement. I think, yeah, I like that we have a lot of transportation study in the current work program, but I don't think I don't see traffic calming or enforcement there. For example, I think one thing I mentioned to Deb is maybe install more speed meter on streets where people complain about speeding cars. And maybe they could be portable in the beginning, and then maybe in some streets it can be installed on light poles like we see in Pacifica right now.
Yeah, so if you, when we get to the mid-year budget adjustment or mid-year budget status, not as part of this process, you will see a request for $100,000 for neighborhood traffic calming items. We haven't had a budget for this for neighborhoods for 15 years. So you'll see that in the mid-year adjustment.
So all of these are on the CIP. They're not going away.
So this will we see in the CIP budget, or this will be just under operation and we don't even see an item?
It'll be an adjustment in mid-year for 100, then we'll be bringing it back in proposed CIP for 200.
Okay, how about enforcement? Are we doing?
That's under code. That's definitely operations code enforcement in the sheriff's department. I'm not sure how to show that except that it's ongoing.
I'm not sure what was the original intention to improve enforcement. More enforcement for red light running and back blocking of intersections. That's in the description.
Yeah,
so are we?
I mean, I thought we were only going to do things right now that are not included.
Right.
All of these are included in the work
CIP.
program, but they're in the CIP. So why are you discussing every single one?
No, I would like to know what's the status from last year. So enforcement is not CIP, right? Enforcement, that's implemented.
It's operational, somewhere between code enforcement and sheriff department.
That will be implemented.
I mean, I'm just wondering, to the mayor's point, if some of these questions could be handled offline.
Okay, number 7, last one. Number 7, study session on Valco. Shouldn't that still be on the work program next year?
Not if we just do them regularly. I mean, to me, they're kind of operational. They get up, you'll get updated.
Valco specific plan has not ever, for the entire site. Has that been on the agenda?
Yeah, that's for.
A future planning for the Valco site is just being started now, and so as part of that, as that process unfolds, there'll be hearings that occur along the way, public engagement, review by Planning Commission, review by City Council, and so that'll be part of that process that's undergoing now in the 2019-2020 work program.
Okay.
But that won't be done by June, right?
It'll be done sometime this calendar year, so it could leak over into 2021.
But then it seems that should be included in the next year's work program. Similar for the GPA Gateway program. Yes, we are doing a study now, but likely it won't finish by June, right? Shouldn't that still be kept?
These are just
in case it's done, then it can be removed. In case it's not, then.
Yeah, I guess I looked at these study sessions on Valco, regardless of what we were trying to do, as kind of normal updates, normal operations.
Why is that? Because we don't really have a project plan. We don't have a project plan. Why is that normal operation?
Well, we can, I suppose.
I mean, so it is true that for the GPA Gateway, we probably would not finish it before fiscal year 2020 to 2021 starts. So I wonder if
that one we might, but the Valco, to your point, we might be able to, the specific plan on Valco, we can certainly put in to the 2021 with regular updates, if that's
that
how you
makes
want to do that.
sense.
Okay.
And GPA Gateway, I think, should be there also. If in case it's done, it's okay. Then we say it's done, right? But it should.
Do
be
I have
there.
2 more for that? Okay.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
All right.
All right.
So now what I think we're going to do is.
Well, why don't we,
Go
we've
ahead.
been going for, why don't we take a break before we go on to this? As Darcy has to leave now, so this is
Okay.
a good,
Okay.
good point for a
Good break.
5-minute break.